All right. I want to welcome everybody back to our third and final at bat today on SABR Day. I am Bruce McClure, the chair of the Northern New England chapter, and we always hold our meetings in conjunction with the Gardner Waterman chapter of SABR in Vermont, my good friend, Dr. Clayton Truder, chair. Now, growing up in Smithfield, Rhode Island, SABR member Andy Tuetken would often go to McCoy Stadium with his father to watch Pawtucket Red Sox games, always using the entrance behind home plate so they can walk past the murals lining the concourse ramp. As Andy and his father made their way past the larger-than-life images of aces and sluggers, his dad would tell the stories of Fred Lynn and Jim Rice, Rich Gedman and Chico Walker, and more. When Andy became a father himself, he relished the opportunity to recreate that tradition with his daughters, telling them the tales of Nomar, Garciaparra, and Vaughn, John Valentin, and Mike Greenwell. Alas, Pawtucket moved to Worcester. But 3 years after beginning his research, collaborating with artists and photographers, Andy Tuetken's book, The Murals of McCoy, is available on Amazon, and he's here with us today to discuss that journey with us. Andy Tuetken, thanks for doing this for us in Northern New England. Welcome to our chapter. How are you doing today?
Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
This is terrific. Now, you just wanted me to step aside so that you could get started. So I am going to just turn it right over to you so that you can tell us more about the journey, the book, Pawtucket, your fandom. It's all yours.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks to everyone who jumped into this Zoom meeting. This is fantastic. Never would I have expected to talk to anyone about this project that I started 3 years ago. But I'm so happy to be here. A little bit about myself. I'm a high school history teacher, and for seems like forever, I've heard about SABR meetings from my father, who is a passionate long-term member, and I'm happy that I finally took his advice and a few years back joined up. And if the meetings are like this, I'm thrilled to jump in many more. Murals of McCoy, this is a absolute passion project that honestly began as just research that would stay on my shelf like all the rest of my binders. But I absolutely always give a shout out to my wife, Brittany, who thought I might be onto something when it came to the stories that I was telling her about the research that I was doing, and she knew how much the stadium meant. So the book kind of started as just an idea and grew from there. So the journey itself is my favorite part of this experience because I had these feelings about something that meant so much to me that I knew meant a lot to other individuals. The Pawtucket Red Sox and McCoy Stadium, but I wasn't aware that everyone had the same passion for these larger than life murals that adorn the three winding concourses as you lead up into McCoy Stadium. And over the past several months since the book was released, I've had so much fun, and it's meant a great deal to me talking to so many people about it. So the process has taken on so many different roles in my life and other people's lives, and it's so unexpected, absolutely unexpected. But the book journey itself, as Bruce had mentioned, started a little over 3 years ago, and when after I took and honestly felt like 2 years away from really enjoying aspects of baseball that used to mean so much to me, because baseball has always been more than the game. It's been family connections and lifelong friends and things I've learned along the way. But after a few years, I started to look at McCoy Stadium for much more than baseball. I looked at it for what it truly did mean to me. And when the word was that the Paw Sox were going to move up to Worcester, the first thought that went in my mind was what was going to happen to the murals, because that's McCoy Stadium's. And the murals themselves were late owner Ben Mondor's his passion project back in the late 1970s. So the history of the murals I'll get into first before I get into the book itself. But the history is in the Pawtucket Red Sox. It began in 1970 as a Double-A Eastern League team, and in 1973 made the jump up to Triple-A. And from 1973 to 1976, there was multiple owners, and attendance was good, but not great, not what many hoped it would be. And after the 1976 season, the owner decided that it was his time to sell, and Ben Mondor jumped at that opportunity. And he instantly realized that he had a pretty good product. He had a great fan base who wanted to come to experience, a night out at McCoy Stadium with loved ones or friends. And he wanted to make sure he gave them the best opportunity for enjoyment. And he loved art, and he figured maybe I could kind of combine the two and create this more than baseball idea of what the stadium could be. And immediately he thought murals of the players, like larger than life murals that adorn the walls. And wasn't really sure how he was going to go about it, but he knew that would be the idea. So he set like an unofficial precedent that the individuals who went up on the wall had to have played for the Paw Sox at one point, and then also either had previously played in the major leagues or would be put up at some point if they had played in the major leagues after their Paw Sox days. And not everyone, I guess he had like a selection process to do so. I think it was more of just his favorite players. And he reached out to Rhode Island School of Design, and that's where he got in touch with a young artist, Tayo Huser was her name, who had no connection to the game of baseball itself, and hadn't really had experience painting individuals. It wasn't her forte, but she knew that what an opportunity this would be, and she jumped at it. And she spent the next 13 years painting directly on the walls of the stadium, and they were just an instant hit. I love doing research and finding old articles about them, and just seeing the passion that fans had from day one for these. And that for me personally was awesome, because that I wasn't aware of before I started doing a little bit of research. And in 1990, McCoy Stadium, which had never had a real renovation, needed one. And all the murals had to be sandblasted off, unfortunately. But Ben knew that these were a focal point of the stadium. The game was amazing on the field, but those murals meant a great deal to people. So he commissioned Tayo again, who had stayed local, living in Providence. And they made the decision that just in case something was going to happen in the future, they would paint these new murals on 4x8-foot wood boards. And just a immense project, but one that was just incredible. Tayo loved it because it was her chance to kind of like redo some of the ones maybe she didn't like as much, but also add many more. So that the total ended up getting to within the 90s. She painted 45 beautiful 4x8 with the wood trim. It ended up being 5x9, weighing over 150 pounds. So these things were not easy to move, and they were absolutely a focal point to McCoy Stadium, just like Ben Mondor had hoped once he had to remove the originals. And then we fast forward to 1999, and McCoy Stadium was the attendance was still great, the product was still great, but the stadium was kind of falling behind the newer stadium. So they had a major renovation to it, and that's actually when Ben Mondor decided to remove the murals, and he didn't put them back up because he didn't have enough space anymore. So we thought. But after about 2 years of Paw Sox faithful kind of politely saying, "Oh, we miss these murals. They meant so much to us." He found a new way to utilize the space that he had, and instead of those 4 by 8 foot heavy ones going up, he digitally enhanced those 45. And then he ended up adding. He decided that he was going to do a mass edition, and with the new murals up, the total went from 45 to 86. And by the time the Paw Sox had time had run out at McCoy Stadium, there was up to 95. So that was a little bit about the history of them, but certainly not the last time that those 45 hand painted ones would be seen. They're amazingly. I'll get into that in a little bit. So now we'll get into the book itself. So as Bruce said, journey started 3 years. It's been a 3-year passion project. And it honestly just started with that research. And I had kind of like an ace in the hole type of individual. I was very lucky that a good friend of mine is Brendan McGare from the Pawtucket Times Woonsocket Call here in Rhode Island. And he was the Paw Sox beat writer for probably about 15 years. And no one had seen more Pawtucket Red Sox games than him. And we've been friends for a while. We've done radio broadcasts and things like that for high school football. So he was the first individual I told outside of my family that I had this idea, and I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know if anyone would love it as much as I do, but this is what I've done. I've researched all these players, and I put together this information. And he said unequivocally, "This is a story that people will like." And that's where the first inkling that I was blown away. That I always respected him, as I obviously still do, but that he thought as a professional writer that I had something there. And once again, I just kind of walked into another great situation where his partner, who he did the writing, but the individual who took all the pictures for the newspaper for him, happened to be a woman called Lorianne Mardo Zayat, who was the Paw Sox team photographer for 40 years. So it was almost just one step. It was just after another of very fortunate contacts, and meeting Lorianne was just an absolute pleasure, because from the very first time we spoke and we met up, I saw the same passion for the stadium, for the organization, and for the story as I had. And that's why I actually found out that many of the digital photo prints, so the original 45 are hand painted. The rest of them are photos. And being the photographer for 40 years, a majority of them are hers. So once I heard that, and I was so excited for the next the step in the matter. So at that point, I reached out to the mayor of Pawtucket and kind of just outlined the process that had taken place, and asked if there would be any way that I could enter McCoy Stadium with Lorianne and take a picture of each mural still up on the wall. Because I figured that the research would be great, but having the image with the research would be what people really wanted. My story is whatever. It's really the murals. They're the story, and I knew that from the get-go. And Mayor Greenwell did absolutely said, without a doubt, you can enter as many times as you want. And Lorianne and I spent a few nights there, or a few days, and actually long days there, photographing them all, and walking around the stadium, which was just unbelievable, almost like a coping mechanism. But it also gave me an idea, because the murals themselves actually were not in very good shape. They were left, almost just to the weather for a number of years there, and it started to make me think, like, what happened to the murals themselves, like the actual hand painted ones, those 45, because that was my childhood in the 90s. I'm 38, so the 90s was when my father would take my brother and I, and just loved every second of going to the stadium because he would tell us stories about. We stopped every 5 feet because he told us a story about every player up on the wall. So because those are the ones I remembered, I said those are the ones I want to get a hand, like some sort of knowledge about what took place. But I actually didn't think I would have any chance to do so because, I figured they had been sold off and everything like that. But I actually reached out to Mike Tamburo, who is a longtime front office member of the Pawtucket Red Sox, who had also moved on to Worcester. And he was so gracious to respond. And he told me that this is something he thought Tayo Huser would love to talk about. So, with that in mind, he gave me Tayo's contact information. And after about 30 seconds of explaining who I was and the idea that I had, she was absolutely thrilled that the story of those murals would potentially be told again. And it's at that time that she actually had mentioned that she knew the person who bought all of the murals, which I could not believe that all of the murals were bought or were sold at auction. Ben Mondo actually donated them to Pawtucket Armory, and they sold them off. And this is the amazing part for me, that not only did one person buy them, his name is Phil Zexter, an antique collector, but he was the only person at the auction, the only person for these. So I love the story he told me about how the negotiating went. It was pretty one-sided in his favor. Yeah. But he walked away that day with all 45. 42 of them. 3 of them had been bought by the actual players themselves. But he put them in a warehouse, and then over the next 10 years, they kind of just sat there. So he sold them to the current owner, who is Gary Sullivan, and that's where they still sit basically to this day. But there's a little bit more to their story a little bit later. But knowing this information now, that they had been bought by one individual and then sold to a business partner, and I got all this through Tayo, and then I reached out to the current owner. His name was Gary Sullivan, and he was thrilled because I was the first person in almost 20 years to had contact him about them. They had been sitting in his warehouse for almost 2 decades, and he invited me to come see them. And I asked if I could. I called us the McCoy Stadium Murals team. I said, would you mind if I brought the photographer and the artist and your business partner, because he's part of the journey. And we met up there, and it was honestly the most enjoyable day of the entire process, because although I'm speaking now, I'm a behind the scenes type of guy, which made this whole process kind of strange. But I sat back and listened for hours as Gary and Phil talked about their memories, and then Tyle gave us stories about every single painting and how cold some nights were, and what Ben Mondor would say to her to kind of get her through some cold weather days in New England. And listening to Lori Ann, it was great seeing and listening to her voice about how passionate she was about the stadium. And that's when I really realized that I had a real service here to give all these individuals something that meant a great deal to them, and that was a book that they could be proud of, which I had no idea how to create at that point. Actually, I still don't. I was very lucky to partner up with a certain designer, but from there, I realized that the journey was not going to be done until the book was complete. And that's where I have this right here. And I actually created I would say a high school project book of my own. And after that meeting, I realized I needed some professional help. So I reached out, and this is what we have: 216 pages of the 95 players with all their Pawtucket Red Sox stats, their major league stats, the organizations they played for, accomplishments. And I have just been blown away with how many people have been interested. It's been an incredible continued journey that's been just amazing, absolutely amazing. And all the proceeds and profits, there's only one place that I could donate them to, and that's Pawtucket Youth Baseball, because this journey started with baseball in that great city, and that's where it should end. And if that's where my story ends, but the mural story is still being told, because the actual hand painted one, the 42 that remain, are up for auction and will be open to the public in March, for the first time in 2 decades. Gary Sullivan, the current owner, said this would be the perfect time now. So I'm thrilled for him. And the stadium auction, McCoy Stadium auction of the digital print ones will be, I think it's going to be in April or May. So I'm just happy that the mural story for certain individuals is still going to be told, even though mine's done. So sounds pretty good.
Andy, what happened to the 33 inning game display? Do you know?
Well, it was still up on the wall. Had some graffiti on it last time I went in, as most of the inside of the stadium was, but I know it was still there. They had taken down some of the items on the wall, but the ones that remained, including that one, which was a beautiful piece, it was not only the graffiti, but it was in pretty rough shape. But that's going to be auctioned off by the city.
Is it really? I loved McCoy Stadium. Went there frequently. Molly can tell you that she and I went there a lot too. We took her kids there on several occasions. It always had the best sight lines. I taught her two kiddos how to take the pail with the string and fish for autographs and such. It was a unique atmosphere, very family oriented, and I like Worcester. It's a beautiful ballpark. It ain't McCoy. As much Janet Marie, if you're watching this, don't take this as an affront, please. It ain't McCoy. McCoy just had that feel that I don't think you're ever going to get again in a lot of these ballparks that are cropping up. They're comfortable and wonderful and clean and sight lines and food everywhere and whatnot, but sometimes something's missing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy.
No, you're absolutely correct. And that's that stadium, and I think stadiums from that era. I recently gone to a Richmond Braves game, and I don't know if anyone's ever been to that stadium, and I had the same feeling. I know they're trying to get a new stadium as well, and it just felt like pure baseball. And I know professional baseball isn't always like that, but I love minor league baseball, and I love that Ben Mondor is just a perfect individual to own a minor league baseball team. To the very end, you could get a ticket for single digits. For a night out at a game with my wife and kids was cheap, affordable, and it was such an enjoyment. The firework displays that they did it just brought their community together, and it was something that the city of Pawtucket was so proud of. That they, we didn't just house a minor league baseball team. We housed the Pawtucket Red Sox, AAA for our beloved Boston Red Sox, and it was just a powerful place. And I know I mentioned about my father, and those memories stuck with me, or still stick with me to this day. But for me, that I could not wait for my daughters, and I honestly took my oldest daughter, who's 14 now. I think we took her when she was about 6 months old for the first time, and I got to walk those concourses, and I pointed out all the players for, and I used to we took both our girls throughout their early life there, and it was just that, and Polo Park. I haven't seen the game there yet, but they invited me up during this process for some research, and they were so Worcester. The Mike Timber and Bill Wanless was so great in allowing access to all um, their information. And the stadium is it's incredible. It's built great. It's in a great part of Worcester. There's a nice scene around it, and it's only getting better. But for a Rhode Islander, it's not Pawtucket. It's not McCoy.
I'm sure. I'm sure. If you have a question for Andy Tuetken, there is a reactions button down on the bottom of the screen. If you click that button, another button comes up that says raise hand. Pop that button, raise your hand, and get in on the question and answer period with him. We'd love to hear from everybody out there this evening. Andy, what is the vibe like and you may not even know the answer to this question. So, but what is the vibe like in Pawtucket now that the team is gone, the stadium is crumbling, the auction is coming? Are there still Red Sox fans out there who are okay with them taking the team away? Is there any bitterness that's palpable?
Oh, there's certainly a good amount of bitterness still. I teach American politics, but sometimes I don't like talking about politics. But yeah, but there was always the sense that it wasn't the baseball minds that were making these decisions, and sometimes the numbers don't tell the true story of how much something means to people. And that's what the Pawtucket Red Sox were. And the bitterness for the entire state is still there. There was, especially now with McCoy Stadium, and they just made the decision within the past month that they are going to tear it down and build a beautiful state-of-the-art high school, where they're taking two high schools that are pretty run down and need a lot of upgrades, and they're going to make it one big one. And as a high school educator, I think that's incredible. What a great opportunity for those kids. But it's been a interesting process, staying up to date with how votes go and things like that. And on top of that, I think most of the anger was, or bitterness would be put at the fact that they very soon after the Paw Sox left, there was an agreement to build a minor league soccer stadium in Pawtucket, and a lot smaller, and it had lower cost on it at the time. But as time has gone on, the project still hasn't got really on its way, and then the price is skyrocketing to where they're a little bit more than what the Paw Sox are asking for. So the bitterness is still there for Rhode Island, for sure.
That's too bad. I remember when the New Britain Rockcats moved to Hartford and shocked the entire state when they came out with their announcement that they were on their way to the capital city, and they built themselves a palace. Dunkin' Donuts Park's beautiful.
It is.
But they gave up an awful lot in New Britain with a lot of family-oriented fun. We had our fireworks, the same as in Pawtucket. We had our fireworks and our giveaway nights, and everybody knew everybody, and it was intimate. And we had a great time. The dunk is fantastic. When I was still in Connecticut and I was taking Molly there, I didn't see all of those familiar faces that I saw into Britain night after night after night. They just didn't go. I think we're losing something with that close-knit family atmosphere that's sort of going by the wayside. I want to throw it over to Donna Muscarello, who's got a question for you. Donna, how you doing? There she is.
I'm well.
There you go.
Andy, thank you so much for doing this. Baseball was a big bond between my dad and I as well. I was wondering if you might have a story about one mural or a series of murals in particular that maybe were very special to you and your dad.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for asking the question. He didn't miss an opportunity to tell stories about all of them, but the one player that he always focused on, I think, because he liked the mural so much, was Mike Greenwell. even though he had his favorites from the 1970s. He always wanted his kids to live life a certain way and play baseball a certain way, and he would always talk about how Mike Greenwell played the game the right way and always hustled and was a team first guy. And he made sure to stop at that same mural every single time and tell us the same stories. But I loved it, absolutely loved it. And to be honest, and I talk about a little bit in the book, that's why I wrote it, because it's the connection. The connections where you go to a game with your family, your parents. That's actually where I brought my wife, who was my high school sweetheart. One of our first dates was a game at McCoy Stadium, because I honestly was like, I wonder how much this is going to mean to her, because I know how much it means to me. She loved it. So,
and that's when you knew she was a keeper.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And she never, and actually I loved it because you're correct. And because she listened to me talk the entire time about the murals, about the stadium, about the Paw Sox. Yeah, that's when I knew she was the one. But I got all that from my dad. Because he.
Thank you.
Let's go to Howard Cronson. Howard, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm terrific. I'm so glad you're here. You're here with Andy Tuetken. Go get him.
Hi, Andy. I'm a Pawtucket native. Grew up in 2 miles from McCoy Stadium. Probably went to something in the neighborhood of 500 games at McCoy.
Wow.
Although I live in Framingham now, west of Boston, so Polar Park is actually closer to my house, which is kind of nice. But anyways, this year will be 50 years since I started going to Paw Sox games. And I came up with the top 10 list, but I'm wondering if you have a favorite moment of attending a game at McCoy. It could be like a baseball related one, family related one, something like that, whatever you think.
Yeah. What's actually, I have a few. My personal favorite McCoy Stadium memory doesn't have anything to do with the Paw Sox, just the stadium. I coached high school baseball. I gave it up when my daughters hit a certain age, but I coached high school baseball. And although we lost the state championship, as head coach, the first person I asked to be my scorekeeper was my dad. And being able to coach with my dad was one of my favorite things ever. But also, sitting in the dugout of McCoy Stadium for 3 nights and seeing how much he enjoyed it, that would be my favorite McCoy Stadium memory, for sure. But game wise, this one still makes me so upset. I was this so it was just mentioned when I knew that my wife was the one. This is when I knew that someone else was definitely not the one. I was at the Bronson Arroyo perfect game, and we left in the 7th inning. I'll put it that way. Not by my choice, that is for sure. So that's when I knew that would be my unfortunate least favorite but memorable memory of McCoy Stadium, at least a game wise. What about yourself?
So probably my number one, I was actually at the 33rd inning of the longest game. I'm a little older than you. So
wow, unbelievable.
So that was amazing. But actually my number one moment was the Fidrich Rigetti game. It was just insane. It was the McCoy Stadium held about 6,000. This was pre-renovation. There were probably 9,000 people in the ballpark, the people everywhere. It was, and the game, of course, Fidrich struck out, pitched a complete game, struck out Butch Hobson to end the game, who was playing for the Columbus Clippers, which was the Yankees farm team at the time. That was my number one McCoy memory. but yeah, that was pretty amazing. I have a lot, like much like you, I took my kids there when they're very small and things like that. But that's going to be number one.
That's awesome.
But
wow.
yeah, but I didn't know about your book until 2 days ago, so I'm super excited to pick up a copy. I'm sure my dad and my brother will be getting copies too. So you've sold at least 3 copies today, and I love the fact that you're, as a Pawtucket Little League alumni, awesome that you're giving the money to Pawtucket Youth Baseball. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, well, I such kind words, and yeah, I realized pretty early on when I was writing it that the story had nothing. I actually only have about 25 to 30 pages of writing in the 216 because I realized that my journey was it was important to me, but that wasn't the story. So I hope you do enjoy it. It's almost 200 pages just filled with the murals themselves, and yeah, I'm so happy that I think you'll enjoy it.
Great, thank you. I'm looking forward to getting a copy.
Gary Joquin, you are up, my friend. How you doing, Gary?
Oh, pretty good here in Beaverton, Oregon.
There you go.
You started the day pretty early at 6 a.m. Pacific today.
Yes, we did.
I just wanted to say, I guess, a few things. I grew up in Rhode Island. I followed the Red Sox in the late 60s. Yaz was my guy. Ted Williams, I read all his books, many books about him. Didn't get to McCoy Stadium until probably the late 80s when I took my wife there. One and only one time. We still have a commemorative 16-ounce plastic mug for the 33-inning game. And I hope this resonates. What I'm about to say, it has never really escaped my lips in public, because I bear some resentment that all too often we exclusively recognize our military personnel for their service. You as a teacher on the front line, taking care of our kids, teaching our kids, enabling them to see the possibilities in their lives, that's immeasurable service, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, geez. I really appreciate that. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a couple of related follow-up questions. Primarily, to what degree has the story of making this book entered your classroom? And is there some baseball philosophy with which you teach history?
Yeah. First question. Yeah, I've been so amazed at how many people have actually reached out about the book, and including many of my students who, I normally don't talk about too much of myself in school. I like to make it about the kids. But this one, I figured, I never discussed myself as an all-knowing teacher by any means. And I used this book almost as if like, hey guys, like I'm not a writer. You guys see me in the classroom, you read my comments, I'm not a writer. But if you ever have an idea that you think people would enjoy, why not? You'll be surprised. Get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And I've really liked talking McCoy Stadium in the classroom because of that, but also utilizing it as a tool just to show them that, hey, an idea you have might actually be one people can resonate with. I love teaching baseball lessons in the classroom. Obviously my dad would do the same. He was always my coach growing up. I played through high school and then played at UMass, and I utilize how much the game is more important than the wins and the losses a great deal. So I used it when I coached. I never worried about of course I wanted to win, but I didn't stress it. And in the classroom, I actually utilized in the fact that it can't be about the grade at the end of the assignment always. I get that that's normally the number one, but it's got to be about the work you put into it, and how meaningful that will end up, because that's what's going to lead you to down a good path. So absolutely love utilizing baseball through education.
Yeah, to just segue on that, one of the best bit of advice I ever got from a good friend when I was bemoaning an outcome that is no longer as important as it was in that moment. She told me is that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and sometimes it rains.
Perfect. Love it.
I know where that was stolen from.
I do too.
That's fantastic. I love it. Let's
Love
go
it.
to Ben Abel. Ben, how you doing over in Vancouver, my friend?
Good. Sorry for joining late. I was watching the NHL All-Star game, and then I thought, oh yeah, right, we got another Saber talk. So it's one of those kind of sports days today.
Right.
Andy, I just want to say thanks for sharing this, because I live in Vancouver and I know absolutely nothing about the book, where you're from, where Providence, Rhode Island is, where Pawtucket is, McCoy Stadium, and I that's only because obviously you can't know everything about every little detail that in every little part of the U.S., as I'm sure you probably don't have any awareness, or maybe you do, about Vancouver, Canada. And I mentioned a very iconic baseball stadium here called Napa Bailey Stadium, which has subsequently been renamed Rogers Field after Rogers, company that owns the Toronto Blue Jays. So it was more just a comment to be able to say thanks for doing this. And I'm just going to have to read, because I know nothing about that area, but I have a strong connection to minor league baseball, obviously, with the Vancouver Canadians being the Toronto Blue Jays high A team. And so it's like a couple of leagues below. And I know that Jays have their AA team in New Hampshire with the Fisher Cats, and their AAA team in Buffalo with the Bisons, but we're a couple of rungs down. So I've seen some guys in the Blue Jay system in the last couple of years that are now close to the minor league. So it wasn't so much a question, Bruce, as just a comment, but it's always fascinating to learn about another little space where there's baseball.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you're spot on in the fact that I don't know anything about Vancouver. That is for sure.
No, it's okay.
But
yeah, no, it's just one of
yeah.
those, there's so many places and so many ballparks, right? And so
Yep.
many little
Well,
spots, right? But I was Googling McCoy Stadium and Googling the Pawtucket Red Sox, like, while you were talking, and I'm like, wow, this is a team with quite a bit of history. So I can see why people would be upset. Like if an iconic team left like that after so many years of being in the same city, it would be the same thing if the Canadians left Vancouver. And they actually did after winning the AAA World Series, right? And then people were upset, and they brought it back as a minor league team in the Northwest League. So I know what that's like as well.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is, especially for Rhode Island, obviously we're the smallest state, and it meant a lot that we were as close to major leagues as you could get.
Yeah, I guess so.
And yeah, we'd have, there'd be games where, they'd send David Ortiz or Manny Ramirez down. I can remember that in like '96, Jose Canseco was sent down, Roger Clemens. So it meant a great deal to us that we had, that was our major leagues. I used to like going to McCoy better than they're going to Fenway, and Fenway's incredible, but just what McCoy meant and what it stood for, that it from an early age, I always felt it. And the fact that people are resonate with the idea of the stadium, but also these murals themselves, it still absolutely surprises me.
Yeah, thanks for the comments. Appreciate it.
Let's move over to HR Ryan. There she is. How are you, my friend?
I'm unmuting myself. Here we are.
You have successfully done so.
Oh, great. I have to say that I do actually know more about Rhode Island than some of the people in the group, I think, because I went to high school in Newport, and my husband went to medical school in Worcester, and he's from Boston. So we used to go to McCoy quite often. he's a big Red Sox fan. It was a really beautiful little park. We really enjoyed it. And now we have a house in Mystic, Connecticut, which is near Worcester, about an hour from Worcester. So we go to see the Woo Sox. In the last couple of years, we've been there a couple of times. And it's a very nice little stadium. It's very pretty. But I had a question for you about the book. Did you manage to get color reproductions of the murals, or how did that work with the reproductions that you managed to get in the book?
So the all the murals that are in there, all 95 of them, they're either pictures directly from the stadium walls from my visits there with the team photographer, and actually the 42 of the 45 are professional images from the owner of theirs. His wife took all of those, and figured that I should probably catalog these because they're stacked up on top of each other in the warehouse, and in case anyone ever wants to see one. So all the images are how they appear present day, good condition or bad condition. But I thought that was an important part of the process as well, almost like a moving on part to it.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Let's move on to Jeff Cohen. Jeff, the co-host of Baseball and Barbecue. How are we doing, Jeff?
Available on all your podcast apps. Just
I bet it is.
You know what? I don't know much about McCoy Stadium, but I was lucky enough to attend one game at McCoy Stadium years ago. My son went to Johnson Wales University up in Providence, and took my youngest son to McCoy Stadium, and it was, I don't get to go to many minor league stadiums, being in a large metropolitan area, but I was very impressed with McCoy. I saw the murals, and even the outside, all the things that are decorated around the stadium. So I don't have a question. I just want to say I was lucky enough to attend at least one game at McCoy.
Oh, that's awesome! And I'm a proud alumni of Johnson & Wales grad school. So awesome.
There you go.
But and that's I actually love that comment because I think I've gotten it from a lot of individuals, something very similar with, I was only able to go to a game. All I remember about it is it had these big paintings up on the wall, right? And I'm like, yes. And I just think back to 1977 when Ben Mondor wanted to put something together that could reach baseball fans, Pawtucket residents, Rhode Island residents, visitors to the stadium for the one and only time. But something had to stand out other than the game, because we all, for the most part, you forget the wins and the losses there. But I love hearing when people say they went one time, but they remember those murals because that's what they were meant for. They were meant to stick in people's minds, and they did. And I thrilled that that all 95 of them have one spot now.
That was the first time I heard of the 33 inning game. I mean, I didn't know about that until I saw that mural. I go, wow. And then looking at the players who played in that game, it was very impressive.
Absolutely. That was I think I think Ben Mondor might have referenced the 33 inning game in every interview he ever gave, because it was like so meaningful to the city of Pawtucket. That I love that mural itself, like the big one that was on there. That was an addition after the renovations around like 2002, and that became a favorite. I think Mondor loved the fact that if you talked about the McCoy Stadium, you could remember the murals, and if you talked about the Pawtucket Red Sox, you would say 33 innings. He loved it, and we all loved it. Absolutely.
Speaking of that 33 inning game, Ken Castro has a question in the chat. Did you get any feedback from Mike Scandora from the book? He apparently covered the 33 inning game for the Pawtucket Times.
Oh, excellent. Just from Mike.
That was from Ken Castro.
From Mike.
Did you get any feedback from Mike Scandora?
No. I have heard that name. No, because the book itself is the real focus is just the 95 murals and those players. I had actually thought about the book took so many different forms over the 3 years. I changed up the setup and what I wanted to say and how much I was going to say so many times. I decided that this would just be a spot for those 95. But the fact that that is definitely a name that I have heard of. Absolutely.
The one thing I remember about the 33 inning game, because I was a kid when it happened, was I got to watch the end of it on TV. Because
didn't watch the rest of it on TV.
it was the strike year, of course. And USA Network was televising minor league baseball in place of their Major League Baseball contract. They televised the end of that game and the beginning of the next. I remember seeing the winning. I thought it was a big deal. My father was explaining it to me. It was the longest game ever and whatnot. And I was like, okay. But after growing up and learning more, I was like, wait a minute. Oh, okay. But yeah, they were televising minor league baseball during the strike and put the end of that game on. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, they didn't need much airtime because it ended pretty quick. But I remember I like that Ben Mondor said that I think it was only a few, maybe I think it was less than 200 actually stayed for the entirety of the first part of the game. And he gave them Paw Sox season tickets for life because of it. And then
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then he ate it up in that 33rd inning. He loved every second. I can't imagine if they had lost. They had to win. They had to win. So when Marty Barrett crossed that home plate, I'm sure he jumped for joy.
It was Matty Barrett crossed that line.
Right.
Yeah, Matty. Right. So, Andy, tell us where we could get the book. Tell us where it is, my friend.
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon. Just type in Murals of McCoy, and you get it hard or soft cover. I love the fact that it can get out pretty quick. And the big part about the reason that I went through Amazon was because I was always concerned about the donation. And I had some individuals, some smaller publications had reached out and discussed with me, but I wanted to be able to give as much as I could to the cause there, to Pawtucket youth baseball. So knowing that I can get it and by the spring they're going to have have some sort of donation there is awesome. So Amazon is where you can find it, with all the profits going to Pawtucket youth baseball.
That's fantastic. Well, this has been fantastic. This has been a great little chat about a wonderful book, a labor of love on Andy's part. I want to thank Andy Tuetken for coming out to discuss his book today and remind all of you that Monday night, a meeting that has been a year in the making will be taking place 7 p.m. Eastern time right here on Zoom. We will have Matt Grafer with us. Matt is the chief potassium enthusiast of the Savannah Bananas, the best dressed man in all of professional sports. You are not going to want to miss this meeting. It is sure to be a heck of a lot of fun. And I hope I'm going to see everybody there. Andy, thank you very, very much for doing this. Happy Sabre Day. I really appreciate you coming out.
All right. Thank you everyone so much.
All right.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you very much. Let's get everybody out of here. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you Monday night.